Restorative design is about the slowness that you can add to a person's life in a world that is so fast-paced.
Something to just give you a reprieve from this crazy world we live in.
I think is really to feel better with myself. And I think this is something that we have lost a little bit.
Means to stay in front of the fireplace. It means to stay in front of the sunset. It means to feel warm, safe, and protect.
Home, such a beautiful word. House turns into a home when you give to it the time to become home. When you give to that space the time to be absolutely absorbed by you. The house, it's always your comfortable theater in which you also find some moment to transform it into a sanctuary. I'm always in the dialogue with my house. It's an alive entity. Inside of you there is a neighborhood of personalities, and you have to choose what surrounds you in order to stimulate that particular aspect of your personality. As people, not just designers or architects, we need to choose the story that suits us better, that gives to us the possibility to feel a better present and so a better future.
As a designer, and I think as any creative, what you're looking for is to create impact. And impact is created by driving change. So driving change to make somebody healthier, happier, go about their everyday and make that easier. And whichever challenge you take on, you should be affecting change. You should be elevating the everyday. You should be delivering something which creates progress. We need to focus on our responsibilities to create products and services that really are meaningfully better.
I think in order for architects, designers to make our homes places for restoration, we might have to reverse some of the damage that's been done in the last 2 or 3 years. Our houses are not sanctuaries any longer, like we work from home now. We need our homes to be places that we go back to and be away from the daily struggles that it was like work that we had. I've always looked at like, what does a relaxing kitchen look like? What does a relaxing bathroom look like? Because let's be honest, there's only a few bathrooms in a few magazines that are truly restorative and relaxing. But I think 3D artists in general have really been exploring this idea.
We often recall the visceral codes of nature to heighten the emotions when you're in a space. As human beings, we're deeply connected to the natural world, the expression of sunlight, the heat on your face, the water, the noise of water, the refraction of light that is created by it. It's so rich emotionally. It's a really great tool to work with as a designer. It can bring a space to life. What brings a surface to life? And that's basically light. You know, when you wake up in the morning and light hits it, when you're drawing the curtains and the sun is setting, light hits it. And light can be augmented and it can be manipulated. And one thing that does that really well is water. It's refracted, it's reflected, and it gives you a moment. It gives you a moment which is visceral. It gives you a moment you like to capture.
Not everyone understands that. Nature doesn't just mean greenery, it can mean water, it can mean the sea. And they're things that we think we can bring in through digital experiences that might allow people to engage in a different way, bring in this slowness, bring in this connectedness. They've scientifically proven that just looking at nature documentaries has a positive impact on your well-being.
Like we have very much interested in the relationship between human and the world, including of its natures and including of its other peoples. The boundary is, it's, as I said, it's an illusion. From the beginnings, from it naturally, there is no boundary between the human and world. Inside of your mind, there is so many ideas and a concept, and there is no boundaries. And we are using of this, projectors or some kind of device to see of this, some another world or it's inside of our mind. Like nature's and the world is something that, it's much bigger existence than us. And we are just one small, tiny existence of this continuous miracles.
I'm very passionate about the gradient on many levels. The colors of the gradient became healing for me. So my artwork became therapeutic and purposeful. The color palette makes me feel like I breathe again, and it brings me a visceral moment of bliss. You can use digital to help and heal people. And I also believe that the gradient references the sky and sunsets and nature. So I think that we have a physiological, natural response to this color phenomenon.
When we see the nature is not one color. If you see a sunset, there's a lot of different red. So we try to take this feeling and emotion and colors into our project.
An object that every day brings them to another dimension. So this interaction together with the colors that creates make the wall alive.
What we try to do is to use color to give the feeling to lose the perception of the space. We live in the city, we see walls, smartphone, we see screen. In the history of humanity, people are habits to see the horizon for kilometers. And this is, I think, is a big topic for us and for the future of humanity. Is in the deep of our soul, our needs that are the same needs since billions of years. So what we try to do is to enlarge this perception of the reality and give the opportunity to see far. We think that if we reconnect people to something bigger and that they cannot control, something vast as the nature, they can feel this sense of mindfulness. That's why the fact that we want to achieve is to losing the perception of the space. It's like to open a new windows in your home, and in these windows you can see two things. One is the vastity of the nature, and inside, as a mirror, you can see inside yourself. And this is what we try to do.
With their physical bodies. So like the visitor try to be inside of it, it's the same thing as travels to some kind of new natures and new space, because we want to be there with physical bodies. The people going to be inside of it in our installations, and it's wonders and it's like explorers, and it discovers some things. This is something that we cannot explain it in any other word. It's from the channels, our hearts. It's from the emotions.
We combine art, architecture, and music in order to feel well, because we truly believe in an activation of the senses. Actually, one of the ways that we describe AORA is as the space for your senses. I was very excited when I discovered neuroaesthetics, for example. We both agree that just intuitively you feel good looking at particular types of art or being certain types of spaces. When you look at a Rothko, for example, for the first time, you're not thinking, oh, Clement Greenberg had all this to say about it, abstract expressionism, tick, tick, tick. You're more lured by the color, the depth, the form. So in the selection of art for the space, we're really relying on not just your mind, but your heart and your gut, and sort of like, do you immediately lean into it? What do you feel?
I realized that it's important to create art that would actually communicate and create a cultural, plant a seed in our culture for mindfulness and meditation, which is essential for the balance of our mental health. It's also very much about mental health and about achieving a balance in the self, which therefore creates a more balanced world, more balanced society, where there's a visceral connection to light and sound frequencies. The bigger the LED screen, the better. When I observed my art, I felt that I needed large screens also to create that immersive experience, if you will. So for me, immersion became such a major part of how my art should be experienced. So in Toronto, I basically created the largest LED meditative installation in history, 120-foot long screen and 12 feet tall. We had thousands of people come and experience meditative experience through the light and the sound frequencies. The music was composed by Jeff Schroeder of the Smashing Pumpkins, and he was there to perform on his guitar. So I believe that the light actually can alter your state, and that soothing music can also alter our state. And right now, actually, I'm showing in Times Square. I've taken over 92 screens in Times Square. It's a real honor to be able to truly experience Continuum, my meditative sound installation. Even for 3 minutes at midnight, every night in February, people have a space to decompress and to feel the healing power of color and light and digital technology.
Our research to bring a device that support meditation at Taoist temple was kind of a really amazing journey, probably the most amazing that we have ever done, because we traveled to China, we work with experts, and so I think the first insight or the first thing was how we can bring together a culture which is more than 2,000 years old with contemporary design and technology. What we have done at Taoist temple is basically how we can support meditation. Meditation is really be more self-centered, how we can do something which is self-adaptive, so taking the signals of your body and give you a feedback with producing device that just exists as an object, and they should fit for everybody at any time. So here we take parameters like stresses, for instance, measured with the skin conductivity, heart rate, breath that we can monitor, and with this we bring an individual signal with light, a position of light, color of light, intensity of light, and that helps really to induce meditation. And this is really individual biofeedback in real time. What is really special with meditation, with the device that we have done, is that we can also bring group feedback, collective feedback. So each station also produces sounds based on individual signals that creates a collective sound, kind of collective music that induce collective patterns of meditation. This is quite unique, and we can even produce visuals and lights for the whole room for the people who are not into the device. And so that creates even more collective impact. I think this is something which is quite unique and probably one of the future skills, because usually we're in our homes, not individual people, we're with other people. There is also a very stressful environment in public areas, and we need to address this kind of environment.
As someone who meditates and loves minimalism and Zen as a design focus, and see how these concepts can be readapted, reinterpreted using algorithms, software, the idea of empty space and the balance of empty space. I think in our living spaces, it's good to have this minimalism, but truly meditativeness can be introduced through art in the home. And there's no reason why we can't introduce LED screens as substrates for the walls and ceilings of our living environments and our working environments, and to introduce healing light and artwork that actually does not overstimulate, but rather slows down the brain, slows down the breathing. It's all a matter of flow and rhythm, relaxing visuals and using color as a way to heal.
We've started to see architects now working with 3D artists to add another level of credibility and another level of dimension to 3D work. And this is really exciting. 3D and digital architectural ideas is definitely starting to influence the real world. Either our ideas of using specific colors or specific color palettes, our ideas of rounding certain corners. And I've seen a lot of ideas being shared. It's like we're all inventing a style. We're so early that no one's really put that many flags in the ground. So there's an exchange of information in the digital world that feels a bit more open source. We're using cycladic ideas and then we're mixing it with some kind of international style, and we're building this kind of crazy skyscraper that doesn't look like anything the world has ever seen. Using Greek architecture or something that invokes maybe a Roman architecture, I think a lot of the time when we see this kind of architecture, it also has that arresting quality of monumental architecture. So perhaps that plays into the restorative part of my design is when we walk into a massive church or a massive mosque that's got that monumental idea, we're arrested by it and we can't do anything else but just gaze at it and wonder at it.
It'd be about how you display the artwork, all types of artwork, thinking about the qualities of light that come into the space. It would have an almost monastic quality without it being religious, but we want a space that makes you stop, makes you breathe, makes you really think about the space that you're in. There are also other things that we'd like to introduce. It's how you can create a space for a community, because it really captures that essence of what I think great architecture can do. It can move people, it can create calm, it can create a sense of belonging.
Another key source of inspiration, for example, has been Naoshima. And there's this one particular room where there's a beautiful Monet display and you take your shoes off and you put on little slippers and you're walking on porcelain tiles. It's that beautiful meeting of art, space and context coming together. So I think the key there is that any of the design and curatorial choices, they're not siloed, they're synchronized.
And at all points you have this connection with the outside. Even if you don't see it, you feel it, the way that the light comes through, particularly in the Monet room. And it's those aspects that we want to try and bring into a virtual experience that we feel do connect with people's senses.
So I think it's all about finding multiple articulations through which you emphasize that AORA calm and well-being nourishment using virtual landscapes and culture.
Good spaces, it's also a place that feels safe. It's a place that you can relax in, and through new technologies we can really try and develop ways of making great spaces.
Will I be involved in creating more serene spaces in video games? Video games I feel like might be one of the last sort of like vestiges of science fiction and fantasy. And I think video games are such a big part of our lives, such a big part of young people's formative years. So it would be amazing to be able to influence them with good design or restorative design at that point in their lives when it really matters a lot.
The idea behind drawing from architecture, music, and art came from both of our personal experiences. Mine was in hospital about 5 years ago, and I noticed that there was art on the walls, but none in patients' rooms. And it just made me dream a bit, it made me feel good. And I thought, well, how can you bring these intuitively wonderful aspects of art to people who are immobile? And so the idea for that was, okay, what about a virtual space? But a virtual space and just displaying art in a two-dimensional manner, that's not enough, right? You need to create a context around it. So you were thinking about the relationship between health and being well. And so we realized that art on its own wasn't enough, you needed architecture. But then when you're touring through a virtual space, you couldn't have the most thoughtful virtual space and the most thoughtful art. But what about feeling something? And what better way to feel something than music? And so we've now collaborated with a number of composers from all over the world. And I think at the end of the day, it's about harmony, the harmony between those three different elements.
It's about a calmness that we try and bring. We think about the way that the light falls on the wall, the textures. It's all to bring a sense of slowness into your daily life.
The home is a place where it is your escape, it is your sanctuary, it is a place that is yours. And at certain moments, I think it's the role of technology to also enable you to shut off and shut down and detox and escape the technology. Technology is an amazing enabler, but can also enable you to be more human if it is well measured, well balanced, and sometimes more discreet, and then alive and active when it needs to be, but finding that harmony and balance between those various moments. The way you live, the way you move around, the way you communicate with people will always keep evolving, but the base value should be, does it make you happier? Does it make you healthier? And I think there's a real risk of losing that vision and losing what is important to the individual, to your friends, your family, to your relationships. And it's the human part of that that is really important. Tomorrow living for me is about a holistic sense of health and happiness.
It starts in your present. What you buy, how you act, your political choices, everything is preparing the future.
Tomorrow living will definitely be the enhancement of human life, the extension of human life through leading edge technology.